Hey everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, and I'm not gonna lie, I finished Devil May Cry 5 in one sitting. One glorious, quip-happy, gun-smoking, sword-flailing 10-ish hour sitting. I watched the credits roll, I came down slightly from the high, and then I jumped straight back in to do it all over again on a higher difficulty. Now up front, I'll say I'm a huge DMC fan, and if that runtime sounds a tad short to the rest of you, given the current climate of AAA play this forever open world-a-thons, know that I've lived on and loved this series since moment one. DMC 5's runtime is right next to DMC 3 and 4. It's a perfect length considering the incredible amount of detail that's packed in here, and something that doesn't overstay its welcome one bit. Speaking of DMC 3, remember that feeling when you realized you could forward flip onto an enemy and then ride them around the battlefield, firing off shots from twin pistols as Dante yelled, "Woo!" That, oh my god, yes! Feeling is all over DMC 5. There's some stuff in here, some utterly off-the-wall anime-ass, just go with it type madness that one, could only be done justice in video games, and two, had me grinning like an idiot. I'll give you a taste, okay? So right at the beginning, Nero rocks up to a fight and literally looks at a monster straight in the face and says, "Anyone got any marshmallows? 'Cause I'm bringing the fire." Capcom have thankfully delivered the sequel that crybabies like me have been painfully yearning for ever since the Ninja Theory 2013 reboot. DMC 5 addresses the half-baked inclusion of Dante from DMC 4 too. There's none of that backtracking filler that dogged that entry in the series, and although half of this game does go by without him again, when the Son of Sparta does show up, he gets to shine brighter than ever. To make it possibly the best Devil May Cry yet, Nero's moveset is now fleshed out with extensive Devil Trigger arm weapons, and newcomer V plays in a way that no other character in gaming history ever has. I'll try and make my giddy excitement into comprehensive thoughts, because this sets a new bar not only for the responsive, synaptic connection between player and character, but for graphical presentation and experimentation in combat. No developer has the experience with high-octane third-person action quite like Capcom, and it shows. DMC 5 feels like a master executing their craft using decades worth of time-tested knowledge. What starts as a playful chaining of 3-hit combos, aerial leaps, and explosive specials turns into accurate button taps powering up specific swings, jabs of the D-pad to switch stances, or watching an enemy's animation so you can kick them up in the air for a timed finisher. It might have been 11 years since DMC 4, but waiting that long has produced a sublime, purely action-focused experience that I can't see any other developers besting for quite some time. Now, there are some annoying negatives that stop this being a straight 5-star game like God of War or Breath of the Wild, but Capcom must be praised for almost everything else, especially that 3-pronged character system. Let's start with Dante. Once again featuring the 4-style system that's been in place since DMC 3, Gunslinger, Swordmaster, Trickster, and Royal Guard give you a dedicated button for specials relating to firearms, blades, evasion, or blocking. You can swap on the fly like always, but Dante's moveset is now more expansive than ever. Almost like Capcom heard all our complaints since 2008, this Dante is the definitive version. Not only the right level of humor and cocksure swagger, but a phenom on the battlefield. See, you're unlocking new weapons and guns that all come with their own abilities or powers, but each one then gets modified on top of that depending on which stance you're in. Dante has access to his devil form too, further modifying all of the above. Juggling everything into one glorious candy-colored explosion of 60 frames per second carnage is what makes him the game's most exciting character. Oh, and 2 of his weapons include a frickin' bike that you can ride in midair and backflip kick with, alongside a Michael Jackson tribute hat that triggers crotch-grabbing dance moves, as well as the ability to siphon red orbs from enemies if you make them wear it. You can make even the biggest multi-limbed demon with teeth for a face wear a white trilby while you fight it. Because video games, and because Devil May Cry. Next up, Nero. And it's here where things get really interesting, as both he and newcomer V show Capcom experimenting with the very foundation of the third-person action genre that they redefined with the original Devil May Cry. In Nero's case, his Devil Trigger arm is a constantly rotating set of specials. What this button will do depends on which Devil Trigger you've picked up or equipped, and when active, you can either tap the button for that accessory's base move or hold it for a special. However, the latter uses up the ammo of the trigger itself, and if you get attacked while charging, it'll break anyway. You can also detonate your arm using L1 or LB, doing sizable splash damage, but again, you'll lose that particular power-up. What you end up with is a character that can pull off everything from Dragon Ball-style charge beams to shotgun blasts, slow-motion time distortions to twisting suplexes, just by rotating through your allotment of Devil Triggers as the fight ensues. It's a genius inclusion and something that speaks directly to the action-loving gamer. Here, Capcom are treating you as a player that can keep up with so many potential options at any given time, and it feels great. Then there's V. A mysterious figure in the story, V's combat repertoire comes from a bird, panther, and giant golem that can be summoned into battle. The twist, though, is that V's face buttons are all mapped to these creatures, and the only move he can pull off is a finisher when enemies are staggered and on low health. It creates a fascinating dynamic where in terms of physical space, you're focused on evasion and keeping V alive, whilst also inputting the same commands for flurries, specials, launches, etc. from a distance. Yes, it sounds weird and it's intentionally disconnecting, but once you get your head around how to essentially command this tiny army of demonic power in every respect, your combo counter soars through the roof and the screen turns into a disco of lightning bolts and tendril swipes. Oh, and Capcom's way of letting you know that they know that V is essentially the emo Kylo Ren Twitter account brought to life. He powers up by reading goth poetry in battle. Dude has sandals, tribal-looking tattoos, a string leather vest, a silver cane, and a poetry book. It's brilliant. So we have our heroes and gameplay is sublime. I cannot stress this enough. Gameplay is sublime. But what are they all doing? Sadly, it's here where we get onto some of the negatives. Devil May Cry 5 is a game with exquisite combat, visuals, main characters, and that oh so giddily enjoyable escapist tone, but the rest of the package, it propels everything along nicely, but doesn't stand up to scrutiny in the same way or anywhere near as much as I'd like. Put simply, the story is nonsense. It's enjoyable nonsense, sure, but writer Bingo Morihashi has put together something so determined to surprise you in the moment that it falls apart when you take just a step back or think in any wider sense. Spread across a needlessly convoluted 2 weeks later, 2 months before, earlier that day, later that week timeline, characters enter the story with a level of knowledge that, once you know the full picture, makes a lot of their early game dialogue completely nonsensical. Even on my first time through, I noticed one character knowing something that only a couple of others were discussing privately, and it led to one of the game's most seismic events, but I was left thinking, but doesn't he, don't they, that can't possibly... I mean, look, I can totally sweep this stuff under the rug, but it's a shame that Capcom didn't spend more time going back over and tightening everything up. It means that you have to take DMC5's merits from the combat, which I totally will do and you should too, but considering just how much time, money, and effort went into the facial animations and exemplary cinematography for cutscenes, it feels like a misstep to not bring everything together more cohesively. Because make no mistake, this is the most cutscene heavy DMC has ever been. The first few missions feel like you're playing Stitch the Cutscene Together, the game, and it's only in the second half where those shackles are more notably taken off. Speaking of cohesion though, and here's where things get deflatingly divisive, but bear with me, the game's treatment of women is a massive shame. Maybe I'm picking up on something that many other people just won't mind, and look, I'm as tired of the point finger freak out conversations as the vast majority of people, but I'd be lying if I said that these elements didn't stick out, or that they weren't worth talking about. I say this as someone who thinks Devil May Cry 5 is a must play, but as I watched it unfold and took all of it in, these were the negatives that I just couldn't shake. From suggesting one unconscious woman will be up for it just because she's naked, mentioning how she has a smoking body again while she's still naked and unconscious, to having Trish and Lady talk to each other like sultry porn stars, to having the camera pan over their bodies like the way Michael Bay used to shoot the Transformers films. Lady and Trish have literally nothing to do other than wait for Dante, Nero, or V to progress the plot, and weapons handler Nico's inventory screen is reminiscent of quiet helicopter scenes from Metal Gear Solid 5, albeit without the boob dangling. It doubly sucks because writer Bingo Morihashi helped write Bayonetta 2. He knows how to make characters that are both powerful and sexy, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The issues in this case come from DMC5's female cast feeling weak, disposable, and only existing to be ogled at. Capcom have championed being able to design games and characters that appeal to both genders in the past, and they had someone on staff who could have totally nailed that. So when they end up treating the audience like some slack-jawed bunch of gawkers thinking, oh, boobs, I kind of think that's a legitimate talking point, and it sucks. You can do better, Capcom, and I don't know why you didn't. Still, whilst your mileage may vary on indulgences into male fantasies or gender politics, a more in-your-face negative is how content has been split across microtransactions and the game's deluxe edition. Where the last numbered DMC existed in a time before recurrent spending methods, DMC5 now treats its red orbs as a real-world currency, and if you want, you can buy your way through the progression entirely. Worse still, if you die, you're offered the option of reviving by using these same red orbs. Don't have any or don't have enough, the game will prompt you to go to the PlayStation or Xbox store to buy some, saying, are you sure, if you decline. Just give us a couple of coins and you can resurrect and keep fighting. Don't go back to the checkpoint, just give us some money. It's the epitome of a predatory microtransaction placed to take advantage of the weaker will, and not a good look for a game otherwise doing its best to please the fans. Right then, back to the good stuff. Those are some hefty negatives, but don't be disheartened. I opened this review on euphoric positives, and I'm going to end on them too. Yes, the combat is liquid fun injected straight into your cerebral cortex, but there's a longevity to DMC5 that benefits repeat playthroughs. The story branches in a couple of parts where you pick a character to see their side of things, and there's a meaty new game plus with remixed enemy encounters and access to entirely new sets of skill trees. Add to that some secret missions and the reality that unless you grind your ass off, you can't unlock everyone's entire moveset first time, and there's more than enough reason to put 2, 3, or more playthroughs into this as we wait for April's free Combat Arena DLC. If you're anything like me, you'll finish this and just want to do it all over again. Capcom planned for that outcome, and besides mopping up the other story paths, I hazard to say the best way to play overall is on the hardest difficulty with everything unlocked. I would also say right here, right now, do not pause during the end credits. You'll skip them and you'll skip the post-credit scenes. I repeat, you need to see the things after the credits, otherwise the game doesn't even end properly. With all that stuff said though, the world is not ready for Devil May Cry 5. What Capcom have created surpasses everything we could have expected and then some. It's a shame about the predatory microtransactions, the story hiccups, and the unsavory attitude towards women, but DMC5 is still an exemplary title where it counts. Easily one of 2019's earliest Game of the Year contenders and a must-play. I'm going to give it 4.9 stars, incredibly close to perfection, but talk about a return to 4. And that's my review. Are you picking up Devil May Cry 5? Let me know down in the comments below. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.